Today on The Big Story, Singapore leads the way as world's most competitive economy, but what does this mean for us? Reducing the risk of infant deaths. And what happens when you donate your body to science? Good evening and welcome to The Big Story. I'm Dylan Ang, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Now, for our first story, Singapore is the world's most competitive economy according to the World Economic Forum. It's certainly great news, but what does this mean for Singaporeans? Incidentally, Singapore also topped quite a few lists recently. For instance, it is the city most ready for AI disruption and is also the world's smartest city. Now, here to tell us more, we have Associate Editor Vikram Khanna. Hi, Vikram.
Hello, Dylan.
Hey, Vikram. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, let's jump straight in. And it's great that Singapore is doing well globally. But break it down for us. How is being the world's most competitive economy? How does that impact Singaporeans?
Well, first of all, let's just say that this is a report from a quite credible institution.
Right.
This is the World Economic Forum. These are the people who organize the annual Davos event. Mm-hmm. They come out with this ranking every year. And I think Singaporeans can take some pride in the fact that they're ranked number one out of 141 countries, mm-hmm. Right. With a score of 84.8 out of 100 over 103 different metrics, right? The average score is 61.
Wow.
So I think what this basically conveys is that Singapore is well placed in taking care of the sort of long-term drivers of productivity. Mm-hmm. Okay, These are even the basic things such as institutions and infrastructure. It also ranks highly in terms of efficiency, how efficient the economy is, and also quite highly on innovation and sophistication.
I see.
So these are important things. I think businesses and companies and investors, they pay attention to these things, but they also take other things into account when they make investment decisions.
Right, yeah.
For example, things like market size also matter. Things like rapid economic growth also matter. Mm-hmm. So these indicators covered by the WEF are not everything, but I think they point to the fact that Singapore has a very solid foundation mm-hmm. for the future of its economy.
Now, Vikram, you touched a little bit about how prestigious it is to top this list, but maybe tell us a little bit more about what are the perimeters or criteria that the World Economic Forum actually look at when they give out, this award.
Okay, I mentioned there are 103 different things that they measure.
Yeah.
They broadly fall into three categories. Okay, one is what they call the basic requirements. Basic requirements are things like institutions, infrastructure, health, primary education, the macroeconomic environment, how low your inflation is, how strong your budgetary position is.
Yeah.
That's one category. The second category is what they call efficiency enhancers. This is basically about how efficient your markets are. How efficient are your product markets? Is it easy to buy and sell products?
Right.
How efficient are your labor markets? Are they flexible? Is it easy for people to switch jobs, find opportunities in other jobs? How efficient are your financial markets? Do your financial markets deliver? Do they channel savings into investment? Do they make productive use of the money in society?
Right.
Okay, so this is the second category. The third category is what they call innovation and sophistication. So how innovative is your ecosystem?
Right.
Are you promoting innovation?
Yeah.
How sophisticated are your businesses? Are they able to absorb innovation and create innovation? So these are the broad areas that the report looks at. Okay, so as I said, these are long-term drivers of economic productivity. It doesn't mean that there'll be a flood of investment next year or something, but for the long term, we are very well positioned. That's basically the message.
Now, Vikram, of course, we can never rest on our laurels. But moving forward, what else can Singapore do to stay on top?
Okay, I'm glad you raised that because, you know, I mean, while we might be number one, we are far from perfect.
Right, yeah.
Okay? There are some areas where we do not actually score high. Okay, and I think it's useful to look at the areas in which we are relatively weak, relatively. One is market size. Okay, we can't help that. In a way, we are a small country, but actually we rank 27th in market size, which is actually not bad considering how small we are.
Yeah.
So 27th out of 141 for market size is not bad. We are not as small a market as some people think. I think we score low on the ease of hiring foreign workers.
Right.
I think, well, we score 93rd out of 141, and that reflects the sort of government's tight labor policies.
Yeah.
But there are some other areas which may be of concern. One is the limited checks and balances, what they say. And I think the freedom of the press, for example, is cited as one factor in that. We score quite low on that. We also score relatively low on sustainability, right? Environmental issues. For example, we are ranked 62nd in renewable energy regulation.
I see.
Yeah, it is 62nd out of 141. It's not terrible, but there's room for improvement. Yeah, and we also score low on environmental innovation. Okay, on entrepreneurship, we probably could do better. We score number 16th. We are ranked 16th. But if we ranked one overall, I think we probably can do better on the entrepreneurship front. And there's some very interesting rankings on skills. So for the skills of the current workforce, we rank 3rd. Skills of the future workforce, we rank 28th. So there's a big gap there,
big gap,
right?
yeah.
So we need to do more to improve our future workforce, right? So overall, I think we do pretty well, extremely well, I should say.
Yeah.
But there are still some areas we need to work on.
Thanks, Vikram, for that. I think you really help us to break down this news and really make sense of what it means to the rest of us hearing about this news. Of course, if you'd like to read the full story, you can always head on down to our website at straitstimes.com. Once again, thanks, Vikram, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to our second segment, there have been 2 recent cases of accidental infant deaths, which the state coroner ruled on last Friday. Now, in one case, a 15-day-old baby boy likely died from unintentional suffocation after his mother fell asleep while breastfeeding him. In the second case, a 7-month-old baby died from suffocation after getting trapped in a gap between the mattress and the bed rail. How do we reduce the risk of such accidents? Now, with us to tell us more is correspondent Joyce Teo. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
Hi, Joyce. Now, these are certainly very, unfortunate accidents, but they are few and they are far and few between, right?
Yeah, these are very uncommon cases. Yeah, I think every mother would want to keep their baby safe.
Yep.
But I guess it goes to show that such cases do happen, so it's good to be careful. But I think parents should not be discouraged from breastfeeding their baby in bed or bonding with the baby in bed. Yeah, you just have to take precautions.
Now, Joyce, of course, these 2 cases are, examples of accidental deaths, but there is no real way to completely prevent SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome. So tell us a little bit more about some of the ways that parents. What are some things that parents can do to mitigate the risk?
Okay, there are things you can do, but with these 2 cases, right? The first one was breastfeeding in bed, and then she fell asleep. So it's nothing to do with the breastfeeding, but I guess when you breastfeed in bed, it makes you want to fall asleep because mothers are usually very tired.
Right.
So what the experts are recommending is you don't swaddle the baby. Because I think in the past and even now, a lot of parents like to wrap the baby up, right? Yeah, when you swallow the baby can't move. Okay. So you restrict his movement, and if his airway is blocked, he won't be able to push against the mother, free himself a little bit. So that's the number one thing. And experts are saying you have to, of course, you're very tired in the middle of the night. So you should, there are classes that they can actually attend. You should actually make sure you know it. And if you are doing it for the first time, you have to be very careful. Maybe in the middle of the night, if you feel very sleepy, you make sure that somebody else to, like your husband to wake you up. Or carry the baby back to his cot, after he finished nursing. Or you could, some people what they do is they sit up to breastfeed, so you don't fall asleep immediately. And then some people actually maybe watch a video while you breastfeed, so you stay awake.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, it's the two incidents are really very unfortunate, but, if we could just get some of your thoughts on the recent accidents. Your own personal thoughts.
I think they're very unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's just that, parents need to be aware, I guess, So there are some, so besides this, like swaddling and stuff, there are some things that we should do. Sometimes it's common sense, but I don't know, maybe some people, when you're very, very tired, you might forget. So the other thing to do is to place the baby, like on the bed, right? Place them on their back and not on the tummies and the sides. Yeah, because when you place them on the tummy and the side, like on the side, right, there's a chance that he may actually roll forward.
Right.
Yeah, like on the tummy, and then there's a risk of suffocation. So always place them on the back. Yeah, I think in the US there are cases like the US, they actually recalled some slipper rock, where you can rock the slippers, because there were cases of like baby dying from sleeping in it because they rolled to the front. Yeah.
Right, I see. I think like what you mentioned, I think most parents go to great lengths, just to make sure that their babies are safe. I mean, nobody wants this kind of unfortunate incidents.
True.
But thanks, Joyce, for telling us more and sharing with us some tips on how parents can minimize the risk of such accidents. Like we said, not all accidents can be prevented, but at least we can minimize the risk of them happening. So thanks again, Joyce, for coming on the show. Of course, if you like to see the full story, you can always head on down to our website. It's straitstimes.com. Now moving on to our third and final segment, they have died, but their bodies remain intact for up to 3 more years in the name of science. Over the course of almost a year, the Straits Times documented the journey of medical cadavers in Singapore. Let's take a look.
He just came home. He said, I want to tell you something. I said, what is that? He said, I have left to donate my body.
I think it's an incredible sacrifice. There was mention that he was going to be donating his body to science. And my mum mentioned it a few times as well. And, and I thought that was a pretty noble thing for someone to do.
Many of you would be asking by now why there is no body. Where is the body? Right? It's been donated to the NUS, Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine. Ged would often joke, once my heart stops, my body is like a dead pig in the market. Why not put it to good use?
Who knows what might come out of it, in terms of cancer research, in terms of research for a multitude of different illnesses, old age, how the body deteriorates. So I thought, that's a really great thing to do.
Now that was an excerpt of a video done by photojournalists from the Straits Times. The role cadavers play in medical education is why those donated to the school are referred to respectfully as silent mentors. Now here to tell us more, we have journalist Kelvin Young as well as photojournalist Mark Cheong. Hi guys. Hi. Now welcome to the show. Now first off, it's a really stunning visual story and a peek behind the scenes where the public doesn't the public usually doesn't get to see such information. Now, Kelvin, maybe we could start with you. How did you guys come to start on this project?
The project actually started earlier this year. So the entire idea began 2 years ago, actually, when we did a story with NUS on human cadavers.
Right.
So we wanted to expand on that story to focus on the donors, the human side of story. Who are these people? And their journey, their bodies, from their first lesson to the eventual sea burial and the cremation. So we thought it would be good to focus on the more touching aspects of the donation. So this year we started the process. It wasn't easy because there were a lot of things that we had to work around, but we are very thankful for the access that NUS has given us,
Right.
and also the help that's given from the National Organ Transplant Unit and also the Health Ministry, because we knew that this story was not going to be a short one. We knew that it was going to be
Right.
a long,
Yeah.
emotional thing. So, and not just for us, but also for the donors and their families who have opened their hearts to help us. So what you see is actually a small part of what we have captured over the entire year.
I mean, on that note, Mark, what were some of your initial thoughts, when you first embarked on this project?
So initially it was a project by Chi Seong and Kelvin. So they got me on board to do videos for them. And I was immediately like, yeah, it's a no-brainer, you got to do it, because it was quite an intriguing topic for me. And
right.
it was also not just, I think the thing special about it was because we wanted to humanize the process, right? So that involved having to speak to various family members and all, and not just skimming the surface.
Right.
By just showing the cadavers themselves. So it was definitely a sure shoe-in for that. And as to maybe like looking at the cadavers for the first time, I think it wasn't super surprising, but it was more like the medical students were all quite calm and all that. So we went in and just did.
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of kind of a bit of what you mentioned about the taboos about this, Kelvin, your story highlights, how noble of a cause this is, but still there continues to be a lot of taboos surrounding body donations for science.
So death is still a taboo topic in many Asian societies. Some people, they believe that if an organ is missing, that person will not get the organ in the next life.
Right.
Others are uneasy with the idea of sending off their loved ones without an intact body. So it's kind of extreme, in a way. But of course, the figures that we got, they are quite promising. So last year, more than 500 people have pledged to donate their whole bodies to science.
Right.
Whereas 10 years ago, you could only get about 30 such pledges. So these bodies, they go a long way to help others. So one of the donors that we featured, Mr. Hadil Singh. So his body alone helped in training more than 100 future doctors.
Wow. I mean, speaking of Mr. Singh, his decision to become a silent mentor was actually initially met with resistance from his wife, of course, but in hindsight, she's been convinced of its merits.
So his wife, Madam Sudesh, was quite uneasy initially because the idea of losing her husband, she couldn't accept it.
Right.
But when she knew of the benefits that the body would give to others, she was very receptive.
Yeah.
So when he died, his corneas were donated to a young girl,
Right.
and a lady in her 30s. And his body was later taken to the school where students learned from him. They took care of his body. They wanted to know more about him. Some of them even came down for the cremation. So I think it speaks well of future doctors. To them, it wasn't just a body. He was also a teacher to them.
Yeah. I think, thanks so much for coming on the show, for telling us a bit more about this, and really shining some light on these donations, which are actually normally done out of the public eye. So thanks for giving us some insight and a behind-the-scenes look. Now, of course, if you'd like to see the full story as well as pictures and video as well, you can always go down to our website. It's straitstimes.com. Now, those were the top stories of the day. For more news and videos, do head on down to our website at straitstimes.com. And once again, I'm Dylan, and thanks for tuning in. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.